Airbus is flying high after winning a deal from Chinese companies for an order of almost 300 airplanes. What does the deal say about the potential for China's aviation market? And Cantopop star Sally Ye has touched millions with her music. What's her story and what has made her music so enduring to so many? Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. Geopolitics over business merits. China's biggest airline sealed a deal with Airbus to buy almost 300 aircraft worth $37 billion. It's China's biggest aircraft order since COVID-19 dealt a huge blow to the travel industry. But the deal is being called a big disappointment by U.S. manufacturer Boeing, which called out geopolitical differences as a major constraint on U.S. aircraft exports. What do airplanes have to do with geopolitics, if anything? What does the deal say about the potential for Chinese aviation industry? I'm pleased to be joined from Beijing by Hongjian, Director of the Department of European Studies at the China Institute of International Studies, and also from Kunming, Yunnan, David Blair, Vice President and Senior Economist at the Center for China and Globalization. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Airbus representatives said the deal demonstrates the positive recovery momentum and prosperous outlook for the Chinese aviation market. And these new orders demonstrate the strong confidence in Airbus from our customers. It is also a solid endorsement from our airline customers in China of the performance, quality, fuel efficiency and sustainability of the world's leading family of single-aisle aircraft. Mr. Cui, what's the story behind this purchase from Airbus?
I think now it's a good time for China and Airbus to sign this deal, because as we know now, no matter what happening in Ukraine or how about COVID-19, now it looks like a very good starting point for the aviation market to get some more recovery. And also now, I think it's good time for Chinese airlines to sign this deal with Airbus to get some more discounted prices. As we know now, for European economy, it lead a lot of stimulation. I mean, to get some more recovery for economy, and also yes, I think that for this long-term cooperation between China and Airbus, it's a very good product.
Was the deal signed just recently? I mean, was the idea to buy from Airbus just came up, recently, or is it a longer-term agreement that has been in the making, Mr. Cui?
As we know, for this contract between the airlines and the producers, always it's a middle or long-term, plan project. It's not just a short-term decision. Even before the COVID-19, as we know that the Chinese aviation market is one of the biggest market and get great booming perspective. So I think that for this deal for between China and Airbus, even between China and Boeing, there are a lot of discussion and a lot of the negotiation. So I think it's a very good decision for long-term consideration for both two sides.
Mr. Blair, why such a large quantity? 300 airplanes. And does it mean that China is preparing for a spike in airline travels in the next decade or so?
Well, there are economies of scale in producing aircraft. So, of course, both the manufacturers and the airlines like to have big orders so they can take advantage of those economies of scale. And the airlines want a lot of the same kind of aircraft so they can develop their expertise in the flying and the management and the logistics of the aircraft itself. I think this is a very good sign for the recovery of the Chinese tourism industry, which has been one of the big drivers in the consumption market in China. So I think this is a sign that the airlines are confident that this COVID problem is going to be behind us in the near future, and that tourism will recover. This is especially important for the manufacturers now because we're seeing the opposite in Europe and the United States. We're facing high rates of fuel cost, high inflation, and that's going to cut down a lot on discretionary air travel. People just don't have the money to pay for rapidly rising airline tickets in the United States and Europe. So I expect to see a big decline in those markets, especially if the economy gets worse in the next year, which I think probably will happen.
In November 2017, actually, during former U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to China, China signed intended purchase deal with Boeing for 300 aircraft, which was worth $37 billion US. Mr. Blair, what happened to that deal?
Well, I'm not familiar with the details of that deal, but as you know, there were a lot of problems between the United States and Europe in the next year. So I expect there were issues, and also during the 2020, 2021, the airlines didn't need new aircraft. So of course they weren't taking delivery of new aircraft. The other thing that happened, which we can talk about in more detail, is the Boeing 737 MAX catastrophe, the two crashes that happened largely because of Boeing's mismanagement and incompetence. So I would be hesitant to be buying Boeing aircraft at the moment.
Mr. Tsui, how big of a factor do you think the accidents involving the Boeing 737 MAX model, how big a factor is that in China's decision to purchase such a large quantity of airplanes from Airbus?
Indeed, I think there's a lot of impact of this security issue, even for this any kind of a contract or deal between China and some other manufacturers. Also, we know because of Boeing 737 MAX or some other, aero accident, I think now for China always to take a more, to take a better performance. Airplane always priority for its decision to get some more airplanes. So I think now the Airbus is right to say that its performance and also even some other, very good, quality or some other, even fuel efficiency. I think that a very, very good advantage for Airbus to win the contract.
The news has sparked quite a bit of interest and even, very subtle reactions, like psychological reactions. For instance, one headline from the publication Political from the United States says Airbus has deep links to Chinese military-industrial complex. Boeing certainly expressed a disappointment in a statement. How big of a blow is this going to be Boeing in terms of finances, but also to its business relationship with China, and considering the huge potential of the Chinese market?
Well, this is not a huge part at the moment of Boeing's business. They have lots of thousands of planes in process to be sold overseas. So this is not a direct blow to their business, but their market share has gone down, and also their stock price has gone down a lot. I think it's only over 40% in the last few years. So I think they have to fix a lot of the problems they have. I want to say, I think it's wrong to call the two crashes accidents exactly. What happened was Boeing decided to save money on development and safety in that aircraft. And after the first one, they knew exactly what went wrong. And the second crash, that was the one in Indonesia. The crash in Ethiopia, they knew exactly what was wrong with the first one. And it's pretty close to involuntary murder, what happened in the second crash. So I think this is a serious problem with Boeing's management style. It reflects a lack of responsibility that I'm seeing throughout the whole US. It makes me very angry, the whole US leadership class right now. People saying it's not our fault. It's not our fault we lost this deal. It's geopolitical factors. It's not our fault that we horribly messed up with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, resulting in hundreds of people being killed unnecessarily. That's not our fault. This kind of desire for responsibility without accountability is a very dangerous problem. The Boeing board consisted of no engineers. It was entirely former politicians, former generals, people like that with no engineering expertise. You didn't have anybody there who could say, no, we're not doing this. That needs to change throughout the system, throughout the business and government system in the United States.
Professor Cui, your reaction to what Mr. Blair just said?
Yes, I think that I think firstly the Chinese market is with a big diversification and also very full competition. So I think we should not have any kind of how to say zero-sum game. Mindset regarding to this Airbus and Boeing, because as we know that so far, still for these two major manufacturers in Chinese market, they take roughly half to half percentage. I don't think this new deal between China and Airbus will change this situation fundamentally. Once there is not any, very big change of the policy or even the performance of Boeing in Chinese market, I'm afraid that it's not this contract. Maybe for the future, Boeing will lose its competitiveness in Chinese market, comparing with Airbus.
How do you look at the importance of a geopolitical factor? Is there a geopolitical factor in there? Because the United States, for instance, President Trump launched the trade war against China. The United States tried to decouple, try to, shut out Chinese importers from U.S. high-tech exports and all of that happening. And then they expect Chinese markets to continue to buy U.S. products and, continue to deal to benefit the U.S. consumer and so on and so forth. Do you see a problem there, Mr. Cui?
I don't think there is any real geopolitical consideration from China to get so kind of leverage to take the contract as an average to deal with any competition from the United States. But I do think that there must be a consideration related to the security. Which kind of security? The security or supply chain. Also, once there is a more tension between China and the United States, for the consumers in China, they will have to feel of any kind of uncertainties in future. Also, we know that all of this contract should be a long-term contract. So once there are some problem in future, especially once the American administration to try to have some long arms justification because of any kind of disagreement with the Chinese government. How about these benefits or the interests for consumers in China?
Many thanks to Hongjian from the China Institute of International Studies and David Blair from the Center for China and Globalization. After the break, I spoke with Cantopop singer and actress Sally Ye about her story and how her music resonates with generations of Chinese fans, including me.